Welcome back, another video. This is a follow-up from the previous video where I read an article from the Water Wizard, Victor Schauberger, the Water Wizard, concerning the process of creation, evolution, and metabolism. Okay, so what I'm going to do in this video, I'm going to take my time here. I'm going to speak at a pace which is manageable because what I want to do is to weave a bunch of different literature, different books. I want to weave for you some thought tapestries here. I'm going to start with Schauberger, the article that was read, Creation. What Schauberger discusses here, the nature, in nature, mechanical pressure and physical suction are always in a condition of rhythmical alteration, which is why there's no state of rest in the world, for this relation between pressure and suction is always in a ratio of 2 to 3. This concept is so simple that it requires a certain finesse not to reveal too much, because it would be absolutely no blessing to humanity if with its present attitudes it was suddenly given control over these elemental forces. So I'm going to stop right there, and let's keep in mind the ratio of 2 to 3, pressure to suction 2 to 3. This is speaking from the point of view of a natural machine, which is what Victor Schauberger is communicating in all of his writings, how we as a species can build natural machines. And what is a natural machine? Well, one way that we can think of a natural machine is a machine which has symmetry. And what I mean by symmetry, here Arthur M. Young discusses how societies evolve, so for example in China, their pottery also, the symmetry in the pottery also evolves. Their pottery becomes more symmetrical. And the thing with technology is, at present, I probably should have posted it, that page with the pottery, but I don't need to find that page in this book. Pottery, as one evolves their own skills, you become, the pottery becomes more symmetrical. It becomes more balanced, more resonant with nature. And this in relation to Schauberger and technology, the way that we can think about this is that modern technology is not symmetrical pottery. It's not in balance with nature. It's not commensurate or harmonious with nature. And this was one of the main points that Victor Schauberger communicates in his writing, that our our technology is dissonant. And the thing about dissonance is necessary. In music, for example, on the piano, the reason that we tune the way we tune is because we have to accommodate dissonance. And we can look at work like Harry Parch and listen to his music, and we can use an analogy here that technology needs to be it needs a harmonious symphonic aspect and a dissonant aspect. This can be thought of in the double spiral flow pipe. This can be thought of when we look at the double spiral flow pipe, that we have this is dissonance, and this is the harmony. This is the 3-part suction. This is the 2 parts pressure. And in Schallberger's machines, the suction and the pressure are operating in a reciprocal relation. There's an exchange here. There's an interchange. There's an interface zone. There are endothermic and exothermic reactions taking place within a closed system. And this closed system, what happens in this closed system is a breathing process and a development of what Victor Schallberger called the biological vacuum. And the biological vacuum is the fulcrum. It is the force which predominates in nature. And as Schallberger said, it is the force, it's not the force, the suctional principle must predominate in machines. So we can look at the atomic bomb, and what we find with the atomic bomb is that they utilize the implosion principle as the catalyst, the thing which actuates the explosion, the atomic reaction. So what science has done is science has inverted a natural order. Science has taken one side of nature, nature's pressural aspect, the explosion aspect, the combustion aspect, the taking aspect. The pressural is this is the masculine energy. The suction is the feminine energy. This is the suction is the negative. The pressure is the positive. The pressure is the pipe wall, the double helical complex flow motion, which frees oxygen to inseminate the hydrogen core, the hydrogen core flow of water within the device. So when we're thinking, as I speak in this video, we can think in terms of this as a cross-section of a simplified cross-section of the flow dynamics within a Schallberger machine. We can also think in terms of this image as a longitudinal, should make sure the camera here, this as a longitudinal view of the double helical motion with your double helical peripheral flow, and then a simplifying core laminar flow, where the temperature is going to decrease, is going to approach plus 4 degrees Celsius, the anomaly point, where water is at its densest and most energetic. And out here, where water is heated, we can imagine at the periphery of the pipe wall that this is like the cold light. All these little pluses, these are like little suns. Perhaps the sediment, the rubbing of sediment around the periphery of the pipe wall is freeing this cold light, as Schallberger said, when 2 stones are rubbed underwater, when 2 live stones are rubbed underwater. Live stones meaning stones that are charged. When they're rubbed underwater, and this is well documented from old times, the blue Danube, the glow in the Danube, this glow, and also this was documented by Wilhelm Reich. Where is that book? I have so many books out right now. This blue glow here around the human body. This, I believe, in part what is happening here. Okay, so we can think about the frictional double helical peripheral flow motion, this is a complex, this is like a DNA. Perhaps this is why we have double helical DNA, because we are in this double helical duality reality. And what I see, one of many things which is happening here is through the friction of sediment, there is a freeing of energy which is absorbed, but this is not, this is the wrong word to use here, because really what is occurring here is procreation, is a reproduction, because we're also thinking in terms of a closed system. So I'll just get another image here of, where's the nature as teacher? So keeping in mind this, we're talking about symmetry and technology. And a vehicle, let's say a car, a combustion engine, is using the combustion principle. There is really no, the suctional principle does not predominate. It does not, there is a suctional principle in terms of drawing air in to cool the engine. But the idea with Schauberger machines is that the draw is the predominating force. And the explosions, these peripheral explosions, they are orderly, and they serve as a fuel source for this core laminar flow. What is happening here is this is a negative temperature gradient. This is approaching 4 degrees as we approach the core of the water's flow, and this is moving away from 4 degrees. So what we have here is a contraction and an expansion. And in a sense, this being a somewhat simplified form, we have a water piston. This here is in essence a form of water bearing. This is a dynamic water bearing. And we can think about this in terms of it's a cylindrical pipe in terms of a closed system, like a repulsator or a repulsine. So in terms of a closed system, that would be in this book here. So we can imagine from the perspective of a closed system, for example. So when I'm speaking, let's think in terms of the complete machine operating in terms of cycles, okay? Because what we're talking about here, when we're talking about cycles, we're talking about developing the biological vacuum within the machine and developing the fine temperature differentials which will govern this expansion and contraction within this pipe, this piston-like energy exchange which takes place. And the free energy, there is no free energy here. The free energy, one of many ways that we can think about this, we can think in terms of Wilhelm Reich and his bions. We can also think in terms of a man like Antoine Béchamp, who we know through his studies, when he autoclaved chalk, he found, so what he would do is crush chalk in a mortar or pestle, autoclave, cool, and view under the microscope and repeat this process. And what Béchamp found, and also what Reich found with his bions and his bion packs, was that the chalk, when viewed under the microscope, after having been crushed, heated, autoclaved, cooled, and the process repeated, what he found were tiny vesicles. He called them microzymas. And what I believe is happening in Schauberger machines, a part of what is happening, is the sediment, the fine sediment, is being organically analyzed in this water-bearing mill around the periphery of the pipe, is being organically analyzed, and these microzymas, now we can think in terms of pleomorphism here. These microzymas, being in such a beneficial environment, are are ennobled in a sense. Now, perhaps this is where some of this excess energy is derived. Perhaps the microzymas themselves are universal building blocks in a sense. Perhaps these are the universal the universal building blocks of what? Perhaps they are the universal building blocks, because also when we study Schauberger, we learn Schauberger talks about the growth of metals, the growth of minerals and metals. So now imagining, this is a cross section, we can also imagine within a closed, hermetically sealed system, that perhaps what is happening is the sediment, the impurities, or that which is added initially as catalyst is analyzed organically by way of this double helical flow, and we can get into this flow. We can become a part of this flow within ourselves and imagine the complexity and the friction that will occur in this boundary zone, in this peripheral zone here. This is the chaos, this is the order, this is the pressure, this is the suction, this is the heat, this is the cool, this is the electricity, right? This is the electricity, this is the magnetism. So perhaps what is happening, microzymas, bions, these little nuclear, or these little single cell, are they single cell, these entities, these living energy bodies, perhaps these are the building blocks of the atomic kingdom. Perhaps this here is potentially what we're talking about, and Victor Schauberger talked about atom transforming machines, right? His atom transforming of droppable liquids and gaseous substances is characterized by the fact that with the aid of accelerating flow motion and with the simultaneous alteration of their surface tensions, these substances will be dynamically dissociated, and the dissociated products organically synthesized into quality and quantity matter. Okay, guys, let's weave something here. We know this is monomorphism, pleomorphism. Okay, we can also refer to Royal Raymond Rife. Just give me a moment. Okay, this is an excellent book here. This book is worth about $3,000 now on Amazon. I did not pay that much for this. Royal Raymond Rife as well, and his studies into pleomorphism. And for anybody who has studied this, the brilliance of Rife, his universal microscope, his ability to see inside a living cell in its living state, far deeper than any human eye has ever seen. Let's keep in mind that fact, that no matter how far we zoom into the fractal nature of life, we continue to find more and more life, because this is really important when we're considering that in a drop of water, there's 25 million kilowatt hours, 25 million kilowatt hours drop of water, 10,400 kilowatt hours of electricity used by average American household per year. That's 2,100 and some odd thousand, 2,100 days, let's say. That math is a little off, but it's close. 2,100 days worth, or years worth of electricity and a single drop of water. What I am starting to see here is that Schauberger machines are a form of atomic mill, an atomic synthesizer of sorts. This is from the microbiological point of view, what we do in a Schauberger machine is to create a petri dish, an environment which is conducive to the oleodynamic dissociation and organic synthesis. And in so doing, perhaps what we can do is to grow the atomic spectra. Perhaps what we can do now is, starting with hydrogen in the simpler, lighter gases, perhaps now through this, in a sense, this form of atomic copulation, and really even Victor Schauberger speaks in the sense of oxygen as a seminal substance, and this being a fertilization, and water being the firstborn, the physical firstborn. So now I can go on many tangents here with this, because this really does get down to the core of what Reich called the emotional plague, and we can really begin to understand why Victor Schauberger's ideas, for example here, Victor Schauberger going to academia and industry and presenting his ideas, right? His machines, repulsines, repulsators, and a lot of people, not a lot of people look at this and say, oh, this is a UFO conspiracy, et cetera, et cetera. Well, this is the mindset which is this is the wrong mindset. One needs to be coming from their heart space to truly be able to digest this, all of this information. So what I would like to communicate in part here is that this double spiral flow motion, simplified double spiral flow motion, perhaps this is when we have machines which employ this motion, and we're able to accelerate fluids the way that Victor Schauberger describes, such that the resistance to motion decreases by the square of the velocity, right? So theoretically, the core laminar flow here is approaching the speed of light. So we have E equals mc squared. So we're approaching the speed of light in the core laminar flow when a machine is designed in such a way that this flow motion is fostered and given time to develop. So we can look at repulsators, repulsines. I want to find a repulsator, because this is a closed system here. We have the wavy form membrane, which rotates within this closed egg form. We have water, which is introduced, carbon dioxide, which is introduced, the utilization of gold and silver within the machine to ennoble the water, which is really what Mother Nature, the proper use for gold, not to store it in the banks and vaults, but to ennoble nature. Because here, when we use gold in a machine, and we from our heart listen and copy and comprehend what Victor Schauberger is teaching us, and many other men, what we can do is we can create this atomic, what's the word I'm looking for here? This is like an atomic stove, an atomic oven, okay? And what we're doing in this atomic oven is we're creating the pressural conditions that will give rise to the atomic spectra. Because here in these machines, we have incredible pressure and a vacuum. We have the galactic system in a sense, because in a galactic system you have the black hole. The black hole, that is your core laminar. This is your regenerative principle. This is the what do they call it? The antimatter. There's lots of different terms for this space here, but really the way I think about this is, here is the womb. This is the loom, and this is the womb. And this is a form of universal weaving, but really this is a universal copulation. And what the universe does is the universe uses uses his and her, not its. The universe uses his and her eternal centrifugal and centripetal cycle, as Victor Schauberger called the. Let's see if I can find that. I put a bookmark there for sure, I know. wrong stuff in here for some reason. So what Victor Schauberger called the eternal centrifugal and centripetal cycle. Now I'm not going to be able to find it here at this time. There. So the eternal centripedance and centrifugance cycle. So at present, the modern technology, anything, steam technology, combustion technology, nuclear technology, all of it is, and not to get too religious, but all of it is picking the apple from nature. All of that technology is picking and taking, and all of what humanity has been doing pretty much its entire existence here on Earth, save for the ancients, has been taking. This is the picking of the apple, and this is the fall, I believe, the fall of man. Because in reality, had we listened to Schauberger, had science approached Schauberger with the correct attitude, from day one, from the get-go, had science been able to shrink its ego to pea size and be able to absorb novel ideas which are in the best interest of nature, not in their best interest, in the interest of their pocket or their own ego, we would have a world where we can grow the atomic spectra, we can grow the elements we need, and more importantly, we can grow water. So now imagine with a machine, you can not only grow water, produce electricity, but also grow the elemental spectra you need. Now, obviously, this is far more complicated than I'm describing, but I'm painting a sort of impressionistic picture here. And what I'm trying to communicate is that the environment here of the double spiral flow pipe, so we can imagine the double spiral flow motion is taking place in a three-dimensional sense within this device, and we're going to have a complex peripheral flow motion and simpler laminar central flow motions. We're going to have a core water stream and a development of a biological vacuum because we have water approaching 4 degrees Celsius. And we know as the water approaches 4 degrees Celsius, as the gases cool, for every degree that I believe it's for every 0.1 degrees. Here, let me not guess there. For every 1 degree that water is cooled, the gases are reduced in volume by 1 over 273. So we can imagine now that the cooling here is heat, and this could be the temperature difference between here and here is within this system, the exothermic, the endothermic, the frictional abrasion of sediment and impurity, which frees. Let's say we are freeing these microzymas. Let's say we're freeing these bions, these energy packets, as Schauberger called them, dynagens. So let's say we're freeing these energy packets from something as simple as granite, as rock dust, or chalk dust, or terracotta slip. All of these things, because mass, these things have mass, right? And we know that in a very small mass, there's a great deal of energy, right? And 1 cubic centimeter of water is 25 million kilowatt hours. And in order to, this is not a question, we're not talking about extraction here. We're not talking about extraction. This water is like this jar of cherries here. And this is not a question of extracting, of breaking the jar of cherries. It's a question of cooking, okay? This is a question of cooking. When we're researching Schauberger and approaching Schauberger's work with the correct attitude, which enables us to begin to truly see what he is saying. When we see that this is a form of cooking here, this is an environment which is going to foster the ennoblement of bacteria and the destruction of pathogenic bacteria, as Schauberger discussed. Here, we can imagine that the lighter elements in the spectra, hydrogen and lighter, as Walter Russell discussed. Let's look at something else here. Walter Russell's periodic table. We have helium, right? We have helium. This is, and the lightest octave we know of here, we know of hydrogen. Hydrogen is the lightest. Now, Walter Russell, he's got 1, 2 octaves, 3 octaves of lighter gases, gases that are lighter than hydrogen. Now, one of the ways that we can sort of visualize and imagine how this is possible, and perhaps why science does not yet see this possibility of all these ethereal elements, these elements far lighter than hydrogen, one of the reasons they don't see this is because it's like the limitations of the microscope, and how Royal Raymond Rife, with the attitude that he approached science, he was able to see further into the atom. And the same with the respect to Walter Russell, with the attitude with which he viewed nature, he was able to see many things regarding nature which we are still interpreting. So why I'm saying this is because when Royal Raymond Rife zoomed into the living microorganism, he was amazed that the life continued and it continued and it continued. And it's visualization like a fractal. This is a common thing nowadays. We see the fractals, you zoom in, you keep zooming in, and the image continues to, there is no end, there is no beginning, the alpha and the omega. But here, without getting too lost, we can imagine that within a Schauberger machine, not only do we have these heavier elements, say we have heavier elements, sodium, magnesium, aluminum, silicon, phosphorus, sulfur, chlorine. We have these heavier elements. We have carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, boron, beryllium, lithium. Okay, so perhaps from a sediment point of view, from an impurities point of view, these elements exist within the drop of water, right? Because a drop of water, like a microorganism, when we zoom in and in and in, we're going to find universes. And the question here is, are these universes, all those little cherries, how are we going to cook them? Are we going to cook them? Is the universe cooking? Is the universe cooking qualitative ennoblement? Are the gases which are contained within the hermetically sealed Schauberger machine, are they the foundation, the building blocks for the heavier elements? Is this a form of elemental weaving? Okay, are we talking about something like weaving the elements, right? We're gonna weave the heavier elements, the lighter elements. Let's say just hydrogen. We're gonna weave hydrogen and oxygen, and through this procreative weaving motion within a machine, given a certain duration and a certain pressural condition governed by the rate of rotation, can we grow the elemental spectrum? So this is the question that I've been asking myself. Is this idea of pleomorphism, does this idea, can it be transposed into the world of the atom? And with this in mind, can we qualitatively ennoble the atom, as Victor Schauberger spoke of, atomic transformation, by employing this balanced flow motion, this pressure and suction, with the development of, we can imagine in these machines that we are, in the true sense, we We are growing a little black hole and creating our own little universal mill within a machine. And this universal mill is employing the explosion principle and the implosion principle. But unlike the atomic bomb, we are not utilizing the implosion to actuate the explosion. Unlike the atomic bomb, instead, we are using the explosion to actuate the implosion. And here, this is where the magic happens. And this is really what science does not understand, because all technology is really very masculine in the sense that it is executioner. It is an executioner. It requires it needs to execute a fuel in order to function. This is an analysis and an execution of the fuel, and a synthesis and a building up of what was analyzed and executed. And the question of what is synthesized and built up, well, this is going to be almost like a musical compositional question. This is going to be like cooking dishes. Cooking dishes. We're going to cook gold. We're going to cook silver. How do we do so? And here, the picking mentality of, let's say, the old alchemists, the get-rich mentality, this doesn't fly with nature, which is another thing I'm beginning to see, that there is a very good reason none of this is a mainstream reality. There's a very good reason. I'm sure people can sort of, for themselves, the way I will describe this is, this technology, this way of thinking one octave higher, this technology, first of all, requires one to be in that higher octave of reality, the higher octave of reality can be best described as truly being in a relationship with nature. One is I am in relation with nature, and that is a real relationship for me, something that I was broken probably in my teens, and there was a straying away from nature, and then a finding of nature again. And in that time of straying, I was reading all of these books and looking for my roots again. So this last month, I really found my roots, and a lot of amazing things happened to me. Things that, I can talk about in other videos, realizations like religion is natural, the concept of communion and baptism, all these things derive from nature. And one does really not need to read any books to experience the sacraments. They're natural. They're very much natural. But this is not really besides the point, because here, this is a sacrament. This is the virgin birth. Okay, and this just goes so deep, really, to the point where I could get really lost in talking. So we're at 38 minutes here. I discussed how, so if for those who understand pleomorphism, when we change let's say we change the pH of a culture within a petri dish. Well, the bacteria, the living organisms within that petri dish, because the train has changed, right? The train changes, therefore the organisms are going to change. And we can see this in society. We can see this very much in society. Now, without going too far on that tangent, because we could go real far on that tangent, let's think in terms of a machine now, where we have created a terrain which is conducive to the ennoblement of bacteria, of good bacteria, and the analysis of bad bacteria. And from an energetic point of view, when you think about it, by analyzing those bad bacteria, what's happening is, really, you can think about it like this. The bad bacteria, they can't surf the wave, okay? The good bacteria, the ones that survive surfing this wave, right? They can handle this, in a sense. Bad bacteria, they get analyzed on the pipe wall, and that energy that energy is then integrated and organically synthesized, and within the womb, well, what happens? The question is, of science wants to know what happens in a black hole. What happens within a womb? Well, do you cut the womb open to see what happens in there? This is the picking mentality. This is the picking of the apple, which it will basically bar any mind, any species from ever actualizing this principle on a large scale from a technological point of view, because this requires this is a car which, let's say, we're now traveling at incredible speeds. We can cross the ocean in less than 20 minutes with our new technology, our levity technology, which is employing the suction principle in a ratio of 2 to 3, 3 parts suction, 2 parts pressure. We are in this world, we are working with nature. Our technology is commensurate with nature, is harmonious with her principles. And when we dance, when our technology dances and moves nature's media, her media, nature's internet is the water, is air, is earth. That is her internet. And every potter knows, or I shouldn't say every, this is a port to Mother Nature when we throw clay on the wheel, very much. When we play piano, these are connections to nature through hands and feet and heart. Here, okay, I kind of lost myself a little bit there. What was I saying? This is a very fast car. The collective needs to be thinking 1 octave higher for any of this to really manifest in a mainstream sense. And really, it's just the mainstream is not there yet. And why it's not there is because there is still only a surface level understanding of energetic dynamics. Okay, energetic dynamics, meaning, how can I explain this? I'm going to go on another little tangent here. Manly P. Hall, in his book, Melchizedek and the Mystery of Fire, here he talks about the spirit is neither male nor female, but both, an androgynous entity. Okay, our spirits, my spirit, and this is something I've really, truly... I know this now. I know my inner feminine and masculine spirit very much. And I know this through, not because of the way I identify, not because of the way, I know this because I express my feminine energy through various feminine, by doing things which are typically considered to be quite feminine. Like pottery, historically speaking, has been a feminine task. That's not to say lots of men do pottery as well, but even the men who do pottery understand that there's a part of pottery, say when you knead the clay, where you really need to be tough, okay? We need this pressural principle when we're kneading, okay? This is the clearing of the air when we're kneading the clay. And here, we're on the wheel. We're on the wheel and we're throwing. And when you're on the wheel and you're throwing, you're very much in your feminine energy. Very much so. And what I'm trying to communicate here is that a humanity which recognizes from an energetic point of view the male and female nature of the spirit and develops that male and female nature. And to develop that male and female nature means to complete a thought, to take the idea of making a piece of pottery and learn how to actualize that. That is the expressing of the energy through one of nature's mediums. Okay, this is not becoming a girl or becoming a boy. This is an expression of energy. It's the same with music. All of these various art forms, one can express their various, they can express their masculine and their feminine aspects. Okay, so Manly P. Hall, he says that the spirit is neither male nor female, but both. Okay, and here in this machine is, and this is androgynous. This is an androgynous technology. And this is better than combustion. This world where this technology exists, it is an inversion of our current reality. Our current reality is really, from the point of view and understanding of being one octave higher, so to speak, our current reality is really like a piano with only one octave of thinking. Our current reality is limiting itself because this suctional principle in nature is not respected. Water is not respected. Water is used. Nature is used. Everything in nature is used. Even when we refer to nature, she's energy and she's mass and speed. Energy, mass, and speed. Okay, fine. This is logic and math. I understand this. At the same time, nature is living. Water, no life. Okay, so how we treat this one drop of water, 25 million kilowatt hours, whether or not we cook her, we can think about water as nature's way of preserving something, like a jar of cherries here. This is water is nature's way of really storing her energies and her memories and preserving them. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, are we just going to break those memories up to light our homes, which we do now with all our energy technology, nuclear power included? And this is not an anti-nuclear thing, because here the reality is that the understanding of explosion and nuclear and this whole history that we've been through, this picking history in nature, it's a learning journey. The journey to wisdom is paved with lots of ignorance. And this is kind of where, it's kind of the story of history. So the androgynous nature of technology in the future, and this is meant energetically speaking, every artist, anyone who plays a piano knows that, okay, when you play the Moonlight Sonata, the first movement, very much so feminine energy. Second movement, well, the second movement, this is where you could be a bunny bouncing through the Grand Canyon. This is where the expression of the energy through the music, instead of becoming the energy, which is kind of where things are right now in society, where like young kids think they're a girl, so they change their gender to become a girl. But really, this is an energy that needs to be expressed into something. It needs to be expressed into something. And I really believe that the working, the physical labor aspect of life, in large part, it is what grounds the energy, like learning the musical instrument or working in a garden. This is a way of physically expressing our energy. And I do think that this physical expression of energy would solve a lot of the identity confusion. But the identity confusion is also, one can imagine it as a sort of chaotic transitional phase, a pleomorphic societal transitional phase between this world where men are men and women are women, okay? Men are men and women are women, to a world where within the man, he understands his feminine principle, and within a woman, she understands her masculine principle. So a man can do the dishes and a woman can frame a roof. And I don't mean this in the literal sense, but there is a certain degree of, to empathize with, for example, the difficulty of a construction worker, one really needs to do that work. Okay, and this is to understand the difficulty of a receptionist or a customer service worker, one really needs to sit in that chair and do that work to understand that just because you're sitting in a conditioned space does not mean you're not dealing with highly volatile people. And in a sense, the man out in the unconditioned world, in the cold of winter building, is facing the elements, the wrath of the elements, and somebody who's in the office doing the customer service job, in large part, is facing the wrath of the elements of the people they're dealing with. So the point I'm trying to make here is that the expression of a masculine, understanding one's masculine and feminine spirit, this is foundational to getting to this point in the energy evolution. This is foundational to living in a society where we are now cooks with nature. And what I mean by cooks with nature is we can cook up the elemental spectrum. We can cook with, nature's now going to show us how she cooks her elements. So the perfect manifestation of the androgynous spirit must be through an androgynous body, which is self-generating. But millions of years must pass before the human race learns the lessons of polarity sufficiently well to assume the new nature with intelligence. Okay, so this is a physical thing. I'm not going to get into the physical thing. I'm speaking energetically. In that day, everything will be complete unto itself. Understanding will be mature, and there will be a depth and broadness which cannot be manifest through either a male or a female organism alone. So this is what I'm coming to understand here, is that this work requires a depth and broadness of understanding. And this depth and broadness of understanding, it stems from medicine to technology to religion to music. It really requires for science to approach, to adjust the attitude. At science to adjust their attitude, so that when Victor Schauberger brings the ideas to the academia, to the lecture hall, there is a receptivity, okay? Because when one communicates ideas, this is a form of intimacy. This is very much a form of intimacy, and history is just rife with examples, or one could say it's rife with examples, and I mean the pun there with respect to Royal Raymond Rife and the way he was treated. It's also Reich with examples with respect to the way that Reich was treated, Wilhelm Reich, by the psychiatric community, by the medical community, the American Medical Association, both Rife and Reich, the way that they were treated. The attitude was kind of, it's kind of like a rapist attitude, in a sense, because here this is a sharing for a better humanity, and the science is just slandering of these ideas and really stalling development. Well, I'm getting into the bad attitude aspect of this, because what I realize now is that stalling, all of that was purposeful. It's on purpose. It's really a natural consequence of the collective consciousness still being in the lower octave of thought. And the lower octave of thought can really most simply be described as man sees himself as separate from nature. That man sees a Mother Earth, here our host. Instead of seeing her as seeing us as being in a relationship with Mother Nature, with this planet that we are currently living on, which we are grounded in. Instead of being in relationship with nature, we are in a sense in competition with nature. We're fighting her. We're constantly taking from her. And you see, nature, she still gives to us, despite the fact that all we do really is take. And when I say take, I mean also from the metallurgical point of view, from the mineral point of view, everything that we have everything that we have is extracted. So what somebody like Victor Schauberger was trying to explain is we don't need to extract gasoline or petroleum from the earth. What we can do is build machines which utilize nature's pressure and suction principle, and we can actuate her cycloid spiral waxing motion. This is a waxing and waning motion. And the waxing can be built up to a degree where it appears as though things are magical and we are getting free energy, but we're not getting free energy. So I keep going on this tangent here. The androgyny of our spirit within as creators must be balanced, masculine and feminine. Feminine being nurture, masculine being the executioner. Now, in the balance is imbalance, right? Because in nature, the feminine leads by a ratio of 3-2. This is the nurturing principle. This is the executing principle. This is gestation. This is the planning, the preparation. This is the executing and the cooking of the meal. And there is an imbalance in the balance in nature, and this is what gives the universe his and her perpetual cycle. This is the perpetualness in nature because of the predominance of the suction principle. So what Manly P. Hall is stating here is that a future humanity will have a spirit which is androgynous. This is an energetic statement. He says that the understanding at that stage when we have the masculine feminine spirit will be mature, and there will be a depth and broadness which cannot be manifest through either a male or a female organism alone. We can imagine the development of the atomic bomb. How many women do you think were in there in consult with while the atomic bomb was being developed? Whereas when we look at the work of Walter Russell, we can look at Walter Russell's life, Wilhelm Reich's life. We can even look at Royal Raymond's Reich's life, and we see that they had very strong, supportive women in their corner. Okay, and that I'll bet you money they also within themselves had very strong feminine and masculine guiding principles within, guiding spirits within. So, such is the mystery of the priest king, and such was the wisdom which Jesus reached when he called the priest forever. When he was called a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. When considered clairvoyantly, the body of man resembles a great bouquet of flowers. For all over the physical form, our petal-like groupings of emanating force, rays of various shapes and colors. There is one of these mysterious centers on the palms of each hand and on the soles of each feet. The hands and feet, we could think about the, I believe it is Michelangelo, the hand touching God. The hands and the feet and the work. The work is so incredibly important here to developing that masculine and that feminine aspect within. And the work is really what ennobles one's spirit and one's self. And sometimes that work can be treacherous, and this is putting ourselves through some treachery is character, this is character building. This is this frictional part in life which is going to cause us to have to toughen up. But there is a balance here in this mentality between toughening up and softening, so that we have a technology which ultimately is predominantly a softening technology. This is the birth of water. This is a form of reproduction and copulation, and I believe now that what I see is a future where machines will be able to not only birth water, which will change the whole world, because you just imagine Now, the cost to even to drill a well and tapping into the earth in any way, shape, or form is still taking. This is still the picking. This is still the picking mentality, which I believe in order to be one octave higher as a species and as an individual, we have to go from picking the apple to sharing the apple with Mother Nature and planting the seed to grow new gardens. So we are in a relationship with nature. Nature is not, we're not talking about the weather as, it's cold outside. We in this higher octave, there is a unconditional love for nature. Even her tortures are teaching. And this is how I see things, and I've been through it, so I can attest to this. And also, I can attest to doing the work. I really believe this. So let's think about Masanobu Fukuoka on my channel here. Already getting pretty long here, an hour long. Reading is there's 1/3 reading, 1/3 sort of gestating and contemplating, and 1/3 action and executing the idea. And without that, it's just, we really do need to employ the head, the heart, and the hands, and weave these ideas into reality. And this, with the balanced feminine and masculine principle within, we're able to knead the clay and throw the piece. And this is what nature does. Nature is kneading and throwing her base elements into more complex elements through her eternal centrifugal cycle, which we can foster within machines. And in machines where we foster this cycloid spiral space curved motion, instead of learning and trying to see what happens within a womb, within the black hole, within the bat cave, the bat hole, we can learn to grow nature from this space and understand from the products that are grown from this space. Because here, this is the intuitive aspect of nature. So, I mean, you want to poke somebody's brain or pick somebody's brain, well, it's going to shut off. You want to pick somebody's intuition, well, I don't know about you, but for me, if somebody starts to sort of pick me, and I feel that, then I do close off in a sense. I don't like to be picked at in any way, shape, or form. So what I'm seeing here, I go on a tangent again there. It is quite late. I think it's like 1:30, maybe even closer to 2 in the morning. Can we grow the elemental spectrum here? Can we grow this? Is this a form of music here to grow gold from lead? And here, when we're thinking about growing gold from lead or from baser elements, we're thinking about this because we want to ennoble Mother Nature, not because we want to get rich. And this is such an important and probably the most important foundational point that I'd like to make here is that the attitude, as Victor Schauberger says, the attitude, the most important precondition for the production of water is the angle, for through it, feelings find their expression, such as happens with laughter. This angle is a oneness in a monolinear plane and is infinite and very similar to infinity. The attitude here is everything. The angle, imagine the angle at which you throw the rock at the water is going to determine how far the rock skips. And this is going to determine whether or not you smile or you frown. And right now, science is not skipping rocks. It's not skipping rocks, it's just smashing rocks. So what Schauberger is trying to show is here, how can we skip rocks in this water loom in womb. And by moving water in this cycloid spiral space curve motion, we actually, what we do here is we have a peripheral, we can think about this like a peripheral bearing, a water bearing. This is a hot water bearing, and this is a cold central laminar flow. And this is actually, there are still even more rings here, pressural rings, and more interface zones. There's more than one interface zone. And what I'm gonna end this video on, the following thought. So looking at Walter Russell here, another chart of his. So we can imagine the double spiral flow pipe. We can imagine this as a longitudinal, let me put this like this, like that. We can imagine okay, can you see that there? Okay, so this is Walter Russell's the universal reproductive octave constant. Okay, I'm not going to get too deep into this other than to say, let's visualize for a second. Instead of looking at the cross section of the whirl pipe, of the double spiral pipe, instead of looking at this part, we're looking at this. We're looking at a longitudinal cross section now. And here we can imagine Victor Schauberger only shows a double helical peripheral motion and a central laminar flow with his depiction. Double helical peripheral flow, we can imagine this like a bearing. This is a water bearing here, which is conducting the central laminar flow. And the central laminar flow can be broken down further by way of temperature bands. Okay, so now what we can think about is not just temperature bands, but pressure zones. Okay, so with Walter Russell, we have the inertial line. His inertial lines are, from the elemental point of view, the inert gases, the noble gases, fall on the inertial lines or the boundary zones. So every time an octave, every time we change to a new octave, we also, I'm not going to try to find that now. Every time we change to a new octave, we also, we go through a noble gas. The noble gas is like the record of the whole octave before it. So what we could really imagine within a Schauberger turbine is, you know, can we open up the so to speak, the noble gas and because they say the noble gas, they're inert gases, right? But perhaps the inertness is only because of how we treat those gases with our current technology. Perhaps when the gases are moved within this living motion, this double helical cycloid spiral space curve motion, where there's heat and cool and there is varying pressure conditions, as well as a biological vacuum, or what is known as a black hole. Perhaps here the gases can be analyzed and then synthesized, and this is what we may refer to as the growth of elements. So we can imagine within the double spiral flow pipe, we have the central laminar, this is the longitudinal laminar flow, and that we have pressure rings around that central laminar flow. We have a pressure zone, first pressure zone, second pressure zone, third and fourth. And between these pressure zones, which could also be thought of as temperature zones, we have these boundary layers, and we have this complex flow motion within the pipe. So I'm not going to take this thought too much further, other than to say that I'm beginning to see the potential of weaving Russell with Schauberger, and the idea of growing the elemental spectra, the atomic spectra, growing all of these elements within these biological machines, utilizing nature's copulation principle, which here it's shown here. And in order to, and that's the wrong word, utilize, in order to understand and work with nature, we really need to develop our inner maturity, as Manly P. Hall states, our masculine and feminine spirit. We have to develop that within, such that we can create these balanced machines. And by creating these balanced machines, we can become cooks with nature, her elemental and atomic cooks. In a sense, alchemists, but I don't want to go and use that word too much because it's really misconstrued, and this is not in any way, shape, or form about getting rich. This is the simplest way I can state this. This is for one of two things. One, for the next generation. As Victor Schauberger left all this work for us, these are his post-its as he is ascending the mountain. He left all of these pages here behind for us. And I believe it's our job to pass the baton in our own way. So in my life, you can see in my channel here, the work that I'm doing. This is my form of passing the baton. And the reason we want to pass the baton is because this technology is going to better human existence. It's going to lighten the load, and it will really soften existence on Earth and make living more of a pleasure and less of a fight. It will not be life in this world of Schauberger machines, and in a world where, we are in relation with nature. We are in a relationship with her. In that world, where am I going with this? In that world, we will raise healthier generations of kids. And, perhaps part of what we're doing here by sharing this information, part of what I'm doing here is to pass this information on to the next generation so that potentially at some stage we can manifest this, we can materialize it and see a world where all of this is a reality. So this is for the future generation, and this is for us, because let's be honest here. How does this work? So really, from my point of view, I would like to come back to a world where there's a softer way of doing things and understanding, and where attitudes are, the attitude is adjusted, because right now it's like Earth is like an airplane that's in a nosedive. And the reason I say that is because the technology, all of the technology, is not harmonious with nature. And we know this. Everybody who studied Schauberger, read The Water Wizard, read Energy Evolution, all of these books. I mean, the preface of Energy Evolution by Callum Coates's main point there is that technology, Euclidean geometry, the circle, the square, all of this technology does not, these shapes, they don't allow for this organic separation, the organic separation, and this very beautiful reproductive process that we can understand and copy, but nature will not just sort of give away this secret, quote unquote secret. It's not really a secret though. This is not a secret. It's more so I truly believe now it's like the soul must be have a certain degree of maturity. And when I say maturity, I almost speak in terms of like a whiskey or something. Like life is like, the soul is steeping in this experience here with, we're steeping in this experience and maturing our soul. And I could go on a big tangent here about natural religion, baptism being a form of steeping in nature, and all of this. But that will be for another video because this video has already gotten really, really long. But I do think I made most of the points that I like to make here. We're doing this to pass the baton to the next generation and also to further the work and grow the work. And because to me, the reality is that this is my spirit returns. I feel intuitively this truth, and I recognize certain things in my life that reinforce this. And even if this is not true, we need to think about most importantly, this is see, and this is where the selfishness and almost that embedded narcissism, because really our technology is narcissistic, right? Because the technology which is balanced with nature is not narcissistic. Technology which only uses one of nature's laws, the law of conservation of energy, and not her law of anti-conservation of energy, a technology which only acknowledges one side is a user's technology and is narcissistic. So I'm going to backtrack there and say, we come back, okay, the next generation of children, this is for them, but actually this is for Mother Earth. This is most importantly for Mother Earth to restore the order here, because we are truly here for a reason. Victor Schauberger called humanity the crown of creation. Okay, so we can think, I'll end this here, we can think about nobility, and we can ask ourselves, is nobility, are we all nobles here? And what is nobility? Is nobility a expression of our character? Is nobility, like Walter Russell said with respect to genius, that mediocrity is self-inflicted and genius is self-bestowed? And anyone who begins to practice certain arts, like when I started learning pottery, sorry about that, phone fell there. When I started learning pottery, my pottery was not very good, and I would say I've gotten to a level of expression on the wheel where I can say I've reached my sort of creative genius level of expression with pottery. And in this realm of creative genius, there's so much growth. This is still a whole other world of growth. But this creative genius is this mentality. Where am I going with this? I think I should probably end the video here because it's getting pretty late. Schauberger technology is in the order of the balanced creative genius technology. It's the next step. It really truly is. All of the sustainable technology we are currently experiencing, the windmills and all of this, it's still unbalanced. It's still unbalanced technology. But it's transitioning to this stage. Everything that's happening is a transition to the bio-eco-technological stage. That's what I believe is happening. We are in transition to the bio-eco-technological stage, and we are all playing a role in this. This is for Mother Earth. This is for the future generations, and this is also for us because we reincarnate. I believe this we come back here. So ask yourself, what type of world do you want to return to, and what type of world do you want to leave to your children? A world where we grow water and grow the elements, where we don't have to sweat and toil to mine coal and oil, where we do things above board. And what happens in a world where this technology is a reality, where we can grow the elemental spectrum, is, interestingly enough, because the as Schauberger called, the levitational forces will be quite great. The levitational stream generated from a repulsine or repulsator properly constructed in action, the levitational stream is going to, not only is it going to lift up the device which produces said stream, but it's also going to lift up any of the mass around this device. And, this can become an actual problem, right? So the generation of matter, of mass, of elements is almost nature's way of buoying, of weighting down. It's these are like, gold is like a ballast. All the elements are ballasts to, in a sense, they are counterweights, gravitational counterweights to this immense levitational stream in nature. So this levitational stream in nature, it needs to be braked in a sense. And the way that nature breaks herself is through the birthing of water and her elemental spectrum, and through the birthing of water and her elemental spectrum, and through her complex reproductive motion, the cycloid spiral space curve, she's able to weave the molecular kingdom, she's able to weave the animal kingdom, she's able to weave all of these kingdoms and consciousness, right? And consciousness, such that, in our own lives, we can then weave our conscious centripetally and centrifugally through concentration and analysis. And in so doing, we can reach our own stage of creative genius and symmetry within ourselves. And that symmetry within ourselves is actually an asymmetry, because again, we have a nurturing principle which is slightly overbalanced from the execution principle, slightly overbalanced. And this does not mean that you're feminine as a man or you're masculine as a woman at all. It just means that there is a, as one of my friends says, there's an imbalance to the balance. The 3-to-2 ratio in nature. This is what pulls the consciousness forward. This is what pulls me forward to learn, to read all this information and study so much. Okay, so I think I'm gonna end the video here because this has been really, really long. 25 million kilowatt hours in a drop of water. Are we gonna cook? Are we gonna cook her bioecotechnologically? Cook the jar of cherries into pies? Or, extract the kinetic energy by throwing it at something? Is it a big bang? Or, did we start with the big bang here? How did the universe start? Let's end this here. How did the universe start? Well, I would say the universe started with a kiss. That's how I would say the universe started. A kiss, some cooking, little dishes, and here, we got this whole world of just this tapestry of beauty and complexity and tragedy and heartbreak and sorrow and love and joy. Okay, thanks for anyone who made it this far. That's very nice of you to listen. Thank you. Bye.